Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I've got a double helping of gameplay in the Tier 8 Chinese light tank, the WZ-132, which is going to be buffed next patch, well at least with regards to the rate of fire on the 100mm main armament this vehicle gets. Now, I'm defending on Siegfried Line Assault. What's the first thing that I like to do with my light tanks? Well, why not get some vision for my team? Quickly, I've lit up 4 targets, or I've lit up even 4 targets on that southern flank. And now I'm going to be driving along this ridgeline here. Wow, look at all those spots we're getting for our team. Now we have a complete idea of where the enemies have spawned, and we can start to create a plan about how we're going to deal with the assault of the enemy vehicles. So this E50 is deciding to be rather brave. We're going to give him a little bit of a taste. You have to punish vehicles for making that early aggressive play. That position it's very strong. The position up here is very strong for the E50. From here, he can go hold down on this corner and pretty much dominate everything out around here. And also, what he can do is go to the corner that you can see here and get shots right down the alleyway. I decide that there's not enough support on that ridgeline with just the Comet there for me to be able to hold that location. And so I decide to pull back. And unfortunately, as I pull back, that E50 puts a great shot with his 105mm gun into our tank. And when you're playing light tanks, you can't afford to get hit that many times, right? We just lost pretty much a third of our hit points. So that's effectively strike 1, 2 more strikes from a gun of that caliber, and we are going to be out of here. So, on Siegfried Line Assault, you might notice that my team is very happy to just sit in the center. And so generally what you need to do with your tanks with high mobility is to try and secure the flanks. From here, I'm able to get some good shots into this KV-3, but this isn't really the position that I want to end up in. Where I want to end up in is kind of where this T-20 is, or alternatively, all the way towards the south at the bottom, where I can then get shots in towards the center to dig these opponents out, and also light up the stragglers that are still in the field. Now we fire a load of blind shots at the KV-3, but he wasn't there any longer. And that shot just goes very high indeed. The accuracy on this gun, it's not the best. I believe it's 0.36. Or it could be even worse. It could be 0.37 on the 100mm. Now there is the option to use the 85mm on this tank. And when you use the 85mm on this vehicle, you lose quite a bit of penetration. I think it's about 17mm off your standard ammunition. But more importantly, your premium rounds on this vehicle are heat, and they've got, I think, about 230mm of penetration, which makes them much less effective against armor. If you've got a choice between firing an APCR round and a heat round, unless you're engaging your opponents at very long ranges, and their armor is very flat, the APCR round is always going to be better, especially against spaced armor, and against angled surfaces, you still get the benefit of that 3 degrees of normalization that APCR rounds get when they hit the target. But the 85mm does have 17% more DPM, but it's quite hard to harness that rate of fire in your light tanks. Quite often you don't get your second opportunity to shoot. And so having the 250 alpha damage that the 100mm has on this vehicle is very nice. And things are only going to get better. Well, not for that Type 59, so we managed to spot him for the Type 4 Heavy and get him taken out the game. But they're going to get better for the 100mm on this vehicle next patch. The rate of fire, I believe, is being buffed by about 7.5%, which means that the DPM disparity between the 85mm and the 100mm will be halved. So I feel that if I prefer to use the 100mm now, there's no way that I'm going to be using the 85mm next patch. Even though, you know me, I love my tanks with a high rate of fire and a decent DPM, such as the Comet. So right now, I've taken out the Type, we've got the KV-3, and now we can advance our position. From here, what we do is we force the Lurve to turn his turret towards us, and that's not going to be very good for him. When you manage to create a crossfire like this, you can force the enemies to turn your turrets towards you, which can allow all of your allies to get shots into the side of his turret, which is weak. And also, when he turns his turret back towards my friends, then I can shoot him in the side of the turret. So when you're in your light tanks, it's especially important to try and get multiple angles on your opponents. Luckily for us, we rolled pretty good there against the T-71 251, although if you take both of those shots into account, it was a completely average 500 damage. And now this is another thing that you have to develop in your light tanks, your opportunities. We saw the Leve fired. I think I can close the distance before his terrible rate of fire on that 105mm gun manages to shoot me again. And so I'm going to take firm advantage of that. Surrounding him and his slow turret traverse, combined with us tracking him or our allies tracking him, means that we get to take him out completely for free. And any damage that we didn't do to his gigantic hit pool also counts directly as spotting damage for us. But let's not stop there. Let's also move on and let's see if we can find some more targets. Ah, super Pershing. Number 1 priority, shoot the tracks. Detrack your targets. Now try and surround. He's got a repair kit, so that's something that you have to worry about. However, he's tracked once again. He has absolutely no chance. The great ground resistance is combined with a decent engine power of his vehicle enable us to circle him forever, and we would have been able to take him out even without the support of our allies there. And now, again, we've got a completely different angle on the enemy team. That's what you have to try and get. Not just with your light tanks, but also with your medium tanks. But when you have the kind of mobility and also the camouflage that you get with your light vehicles, it makes it so much easier to be able to get in these kind of positions. So we hit that tier 7 American tank destroyer there, finish him off. Unfortunately, I've run out of standard ammunition. Afterwards, I realized that my ammunition loadout on this tank was still from when I was trying to use it to do the Light Tank 15 mission, where I did stack up quite a few APCR rounds in this vehicle, which are completely unnecessary at the end of this game. So that Tiger is in a tricky situation, and now that I see that the Lorraine is out of the game, that means that I don't have to worry about that tier 9 French autoloader, and we can just sneak a shot into the back of the Tiger as my team voraciously finish him off. He's completely outnumbered and outgunned at the end of this round. So just before we get stuck into some more gameplay, this time attacking in the WZ-132 on Karelia, let's have a quick review of this round. So at the start of this game, we used the situation to our advantage and managed to get some great spots towards the enemies at the south of the map, and also a huge amount of spots towards the enemies at the north of the map. Unfortunately for us, there was no artillery on our team and also the enemy team, or we would have probably got quite a lot of spotting damage to go with the initial spot bonus that we got. Furthermore, it's oh so satisfying to usually stop here and get a shot at a self-propelled gun that's trying to scurry his way to the back of the map. After taking initial opportunities at tanks that were trying to get themselves into aggressive locations, we figured out that we did not have support along this ridge line to hold it, and when you're in a light tank, it's no use burning too brightly at the start of the game and getting yourself killed, and so it was undoubtedly time to pull back. From here, we used our view range and camo rating to soften up some targets that were trying to make an aggressive play along the flank. After we put free damage into our opponents here, the situation suggested that we needed to secure that flank and to take out the vision advantage that they had. Now that we neutralized the vision of the enemy team, that allowed us to extend ours towards the field and pick up any stragglers that were still there. And as I highlighted during the game, it's very important to try and get multiple angles on your opponents, especially when defending on Siegfried Line. By forcing our opponents to turn their turret towards us, it gave our friends easy shots, as well as lighting them up for our friends and gaining that support damage. Then after circle strafing 2 tanks from full health, we found ourselves in the position that we wanted. Lovely, easy side shots on the remnants of the enemy team. And so that really is Light Tank 101. Outspot your opponents, outmaneuver your opponents, and surprise them when your tank punches well above its weight when it finally gets into some combat. So let's get stuck into some more gameplay, this time assaulting on Karelia. So when you're playing your light tanks, obviously the start of the game is very important to you. And so quite often what I do is tell my team what my plan is. So I'm pinging the map at D4. I tell them word for word, hey guys, I will rush here. If anyone wants to join or support, you're welcome. People say affirmative, affirmative. The Object 704 and the T-69 has recognized that. Maybe some other vehicles will as well. What that will probably do is suggest to maybe some of the tank destroyers that if they bother to go here or here, that they'll have nice easy shots across here. Or alternatively, maybe some medium tanks will be looking out to give me some supporting fire. And that's bloomin' important when you've got a Lorraine. Now we're going to auto-aim at this Lorraine because if I try and focus my fire in sniper mode, it's going to be tricky for me to also avoid these rocks that I very nearly crashed my way into. Luckily for us, we managed to put 2 hits into the Lorraine, but unfortunately, it feels like we take 2 hits from that sneaky Type 64 that's above us. He's definitely got it in for us, guys. We're meant to have kind of like some kind of Chinese light tank pact, right? Where we don't shoot each other. Oh well. Well, you've ruined that already, buddy. I'm going to be coming for you later on in this replay. So it looks like the Lorraine is trying to blind fire at me, although I can't manage to feather a shot on him. We've managed to do 791 damage to him. But we can't worry about that now because a Carnarvon, which looks like it's fully upgraded, has decided that he doesn't want me to be here. Get out of my base, he says. But in doing so, the Carnarvon has made a gigantic mistake. I've basically baited him into a gigantic crossfire. And that Object 704, who we talked to at the beginning of the game and told him our plans, is sitting right up there and giving us some awesome supporting fire. So, beginning of the game, it's very important if you want to give your team a heads up about what you're going to do, and I'm not talking about just telling them, I'm going to rush blindly into enemy team and get myself killed, and then call them noobs when they don't help you. But if you give them a heads up, more often than not, they're probably going to help you out. Now we saw one of the issues with this tank there, that the gun depression is certainly not excellent at all, and so we were unable to safely get a shot into the Type 64. However, you saw another good thing about this tank, that its turret armor is actually pretty darn troll. I'm not saying that it's amazing, but when you're getting shot at by low caliber guns, such as this Type 64 has, it enables you to at least sometimes bounce a shot, and that can quite surprise your opponents. Also, a lot of people look at these Chinese vehicles and they think, oh, well, they must be well angled, right? And so sometimes they don't even bother to shoot you in the turret, which is always really nice when that happens. So we definitely ended our no shooting pack with that Type 64, but it looks like, considering the damage that I've taken this game, that he was certainly hell-bent on taking us out. So from this position, which is one of my favorites, if not my favorite on Corellia, this D4 when attacking, I think it's probably the most important location on the map, because it forces the enemy to focus in on you. And also, whenever you pop up, you can get spots, not only on tanks such as this, and a good tip for any of you out there is that this location that the T-44 is trying to defend from is not possible. Because, do you see the way that the rock is shaped? So that means that if he wants to come around the corner, I can hit him in his lower plate, and he can't shoot me until he exposes pretty much the entirety of his tank. But from here, what we can do is extend our vision all the way out into the enemy team. We're getting a lot of tanks spotted and killed. Look at this graveyard that we're creating here. And these lightly armored German tank destroyers aren't doing much better for it at all. Now you've got to be careful, however. One false move, now I'm on 94 hit points, is going to end in a one-way trip to the garage. But now this is where it's very useful to figure out what tanks are spotted and what not. So there's 5 tanks left on the enemy team. 4 of them are currently lit up. We know where the Borsig is, we know where the WT Alf Panzerfahr is, we know where the E75 is, and we know where that IS-3 was before he just died. So what's missing? An AT-15. He hasn't been spotted yet. There he is. I was thinking there was 2 locations this AT-15 was going to be. Probably one behind here, alternatively here, but he quite surprised me by being completely out in the open and not even spotted. And these are the juicy locations for your light tanks. Being behind tanks that pretty much have no opportunity to shoot you back. And within 4.5 minutes, we've picked up 2,731 damage, which is a lot for a light tank. That's a good game for a light tank. You really don't have to put in many shots in even your high-tier light tanks to have some really good experience outcomes, as we're going to see in the post-game stats in a second. Now I've loaded a high explosive shell. I knew that the WT Alf Panzerfahr would be trying to come round to get a shot on me. One into his turret, 329 damage. Great hit there. And this guy, oh, we've got to pause this for a second. It looks like he's just had enough. Looks like he's just had enough, boys. And he puts his gun up in the air to accept the final shot. And it also shows you the importance of keeping those high explosive shells for those lightly armored vehicles. We were able to do 329 followed by 283 high explosive rolls into weak Waffenträger turrets are always a very nice added bonus at the end of the game. So another fantastic result for the WZ-132 when assaulting on Karelia in just over 5 minutes. It felt like it was a lot more straightforward than the game on Siegfried Line, but there were still some key moments that we should just quickly highlight. Firstly, sometimes auto-aim is very useful. It allowed us to navigate past these rocks while still getting, I guess, a little bit lucky, although this tank does have vertical stabilizers, which makes it quite accurate on the move, and put 3 decent hits into a tier 9 medium tank before arriving in our safe destination and using this rock to hide from his return fire. Then we baited an equal tier heavy tank into making a mistake that lost him his vehicle very, very quickly, while only receiving 267 damage from him. And through communicating with my team at the start of the game, they were all in position, ready to help me out. From here, it was knowledge of the map that allowed us to outplay opponents even on very low hit points. And then we reached that lovely stage of the game for light tanks when there aren't that many players left on the enemy team, which leaves a lot of holes in their defenses that you can exploit. So let's just take a very quick look at the post-game stats for both of these rounds. So firstly, on Siegfried Line, we got 4,074 experience for our double, which was an ace tanker badge, as well as a top gun and a scout medal. This was 1,358 base experience points, and we detected 12 out of 15 of the enemy team. That initial spot is important. It can allow your team to plan and react, if not just useful for yourself to figure out where maybe some of the more dangerous tanks on the enemy team are going that you can counter. And even though we did fire a few APCR rounds this game, we still made 20,000 credits profit. On Karelia, we got another scout medal, this time just scraping at spotting 9 out of 15 of the enemy team, but we did get a decent amount of detecting damage, 1,780 to go with our 3,343 damage done, finishing top of the list on experience and I believe second on damage. A great roll for any light tank. And as we didn't run out of standard ammunition this round, we made nearly 40,000 credits profit. Great result. And so hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, especially those of you who want me to put out more light tank gameplay on the channel. Or maybe it was just useful to you. Either way, please consider giving it a like down below. It really helps the channel out. And let me know in the comments down below what are the main tips that you would give to someone wanting to improve their light tank gameplay. And as always guys, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic and hopefully I'll see you soon.